Welcome to the new Chivalry Movement Podcast with James M. Sama.
Hey you guys, James Michael Sama here, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, what I wanted to do was discuss with you guys 5 reasons that we as men should start courting women again. And I think this is an important discussion to have because it's sort of fallen so far by the wayside that courtship and things like that are really not even used in everyday conversation anymore. And I think it's sort of lost its meaning as we've lost sight of it. And it's a term that I use pretty often in my articles, and I think it can be a little bit sort of abstract because we don't really take the time to define it. So the first thing I wanted to do was just lay out there a couple of points from dictionary.com if you look up courtship. And basically what it says is it's the wooing of one person by another. Now, obviously, traditionally, this is men wooing women, so to speak. And 2 is courtship would be the period during which such wooing takes place. But the last point, number 5, says obsolete, courtly behavior, courtesy, and gallantry. Now, that one really stands out to me because they say it's obsolete. And, I don't think that things like courtesy and respect and wooing somebody should be completely extinct. And I understand that it's very rare, but I think that we can continue to keep these things alive and bring them back into the mainstream. And I think there's good reasons why we should do so. Now, the first reason is that you'll develop a stronger relationship with the woman in your life. Now, as we know, it's traditional, both naturally, I think, and societally, for a man to be the one who pursues a woman and, so to speak, courts a woman. And, oftentimes when I bring this up, a guy will sort of ask me, well, what's in it for me? Like, what's the point? Why should I put in that effort? Blah, blah, blah. And the first thing is that's completely missing the idea of any of this. Like, if you're going to do anything, if you're going to be kind to somebody or be nice to somebody for the sake of a reward, then you're completely missing the point, and it's really not kindness in the first place. Because real kindness comes from the goodness of your heart and without the want for reward. And it should be, if you really do need things in return, then it's going to bring you 2 major things to answer your question. And it's, first of all, it's the type of woman who's going to have the maturity and the dignity in herself to only accept advances from a man who treats her with respect. If you're not going to find women who are just kind of out there floating around looking for a fling or whatever. If you want something that's real and you treat her that way, you're going to find the right kind of woman. So there's one pretty damn big perk, if you ask me. And secondly, the ability to, therefore, take that and grow a stronger and longer lasting relationship with her, because this type of woman is going to possess the necessary qualities in order to put in that effort and build one alongside of you. So that's the first reason. Now, the second reason that I feel is important is that you become better in all areas of life, because courtship is, and it should be anyway, a selfless act. Because it requires you to put in effort for her enjoyment, for another person's enjoyment. And it requires you to put in effort to learn about her. And what happens in the process is that you learn about yourself. Because when you commit yourself to efforts such as these, you really can't help but to develop internally also. And we become more aware of the world around us and what people want and need in order to be happy. And then we learn how we can give it to them. And if making others happy really isn't good enough reason for you, which I would say it probably should be, but if it's not, remember that people that you do things for are more willing to do for you in return. So it's really a win-win for everyone involved. Now, the third point is you're going to gain her trust. And I think that this is important because one of the biggest factors in relationships failing these days seems to be a lack of trust. And it's either a lack of trust during the beginning stages or even after a commitment has been established. And I think if you take the time to court a woman, it requires you to build this foundation for a relationship. Because these great relationships don't just appear out of thin air. They take time and energy and commitment from both you as the man and as the woman in order to build. And it's really much like a house, and the trust and the friendship that you build is the foundation of the house. And without this, it's basically like a house just put up on a bunch of sand, and that, it might look good from the outside, but there's nothing to keep it together and hold it together when the weather gets rough and tries to blow it over. So if a woman has a clear view that you're willing to build this foundation with her, it's going to limit her insecurities, which will build her trust and confidence in you. Now, the next point, number 4, is that it's going to intensify your intimacy, because through the process of courtship, we tend to develop a stronger emotional connection with this woman, as if, rather than just jumping into some relationship or having a friends with benefits scenario, something like that. And what we don't really realize, or what many men don't really realize, is that a stronger emotional connection for a woman especially translates into a stronger physical connection. So oftentimes we think of intimacy as strictly physical, but in reality, when we think of things along these lines, it's built through these small actions that show each other you care, whether it's romance or chivalry or courtship, whatever you want to call it. Intimacy, then, what we can take as a conclusion is that it's actually built outside of the bedroom rather than in. That's just where you find the benefits, or the kitchen or the living room or wherever you want to be. Now, the last point, which is important as well as all of the others, is that you're going to find the right person for you. Because many people get so caught up in finding the perfect person that what happens is they might miss the person who's actually perfect for them. And, additionally, I've heard from a lot of guys who call themselves nice guys that women just don't appreciate their efforts or their personalities. And then these guys turn around and they get discouraged and they walk away and they don't put in the effort. And what we really can't lose sight of is staying true to ourselves. I mean, that's what's important, to stay true to our nature and what feels comfortable for you. Because a lot of guys, they turn around and they try to turn into this jerk when that's not really who they naturally are, but they don't think that women want the nice guy, or the good guy rather. So they just, ignore that part of themselves. And the problem is, if someone is being pushed away by your kindness, then, instead of being discouraged, try to see it as a positive sign that you learned early on in the relationship that they just weren't the right type of person for you. Because the right type of person for you is going to appreciate the small details that you notice. She's going to appreciate the kindness that you exude to those around you and the effort that you put in specifically for her. And through the courtship process, we learn that if a woman or a man or whatever is going to be appreciative of what we do for them and how they will respond, or if they're not going to. So if we jump into a relationship, as many people seem to do these days, we're pretty much left complaining about how someone changed after a few months of being with them, and then we end up breaking up. And in reality, nobody really changed at all. You just learned over time who they really are. So if we take the time to practice courtship, we're going to eliminate these surprises down the road. And we'll truly learn who we're building a relationship with at the proper time to do so, which is in the beginning. So I say, as well as the new Chivalry Movement says, show someone your respect for yourself as well as for them by putting in this effort to keep courtship alive. And thank you guys for joining me, and we'll see you next time.